And welcome back. So we have Deborah Tavares here. You always have amazing stories, Deborah, and lots of documents. Start from the top of what's going on today, and then we'll get deep into it.
Yes, thank you. We're going to have a 3-part program today, Dr. Bill, because I'm going to skim through it, and then in subsequent shows we'll dive into the deeper aspects of it. I just want to get these ideas out right now. So first of all, on the lighter side of things, I want everybody to know that right now here in Northern California and in your town, wherever you are, your cities are having meetings about taxing you for your water usage. This is happening now. So you may want to check with your city and your local water boards to find out about the groundwater sustainability taxes that are occurring. And we just attended such a meeting here last week. And it was literally, there were hundreds and hundreds of people who had received this notification on taxing their usage of well water. And sadly, the people are unaware of the enormity of what's really behind the scenes, which is what we like to uncover, is what is behind the scenes. And of course, we know behind the scenes, it's reducing our water to access of water, and literally moving us off of rural country properties into the city human settlement zones that are also being built right now. So the meeting was about groundwater, and they couched it as being groundwater is critically important to people in the environment in our area, and they go according to a large portion of our water supply. And they talk about how during the recent droughts, groundwater levels have become dangerously low. Now, I want to add this right now, and you're going to hear more about this in the next ensuing radio shows, but it's important to note something very, very important. Pacific Gas and Electric, who is Rothschild, is abandoning an uphill water delivery source here in Sonoma County. And why is this important, and why am I telling you about Sonoma County when you may not even be living here? It's important to note that hydroelectric production is being eliminated. And what that's going to do here in Sonoma County is that's going to reduce the water to over 600,000 water customers, and we will have reduced water accessibility because of Rothschild. PG&E's abandoning this because they're in bankruptcy, and they're claiming they can no longer sustain the negative value added to a renewable energy now that is not 100% renewable. And they want out of this Potter Valley hydroelectric infrastructure because it needs a tremendous amount of maintenance. They've owned it since 1930. And it's also going to affect over 7,000 acres of farms and vineyards. So PG&E, and you're going to hear more about behind the story of the bankruptcy in the Chapter 11 of PG&E, but not today. But I will be going over that in great detail because it is an entirely new system that is being set up without most people even realizing what is happening. So the first thing I would like, again, for everyone to be aware of is our water usage is now under mass assault. We've been talking about that for years, for many, many years, and it is now happening. So I can advise all of you, please check with your cities now. Do not sign up. Do not allow a meter on your well if you are in a rural country area, and do not agree on the terms of measuring your usage. Do not agree. Now, people that live in the city, the wireless water meters are being deployed now. So your usage will be tracked, monitored, and categorized. And when you've used the amount here in California, we're to reduce our consumption in 2020 to only 55 gallons per person per day. That's an enormous reduction in water. While many of you may think that that's a lot, what that really means is that there will be no more watering of outside landscaping. We're talking about no more watering of outside landscaping. We're talking about oxygen reduction and much more. But these are the plans that are unfurling now, And sadly, most people are unaware. So should you be able to attend a meeting in your community, because they give you these fake outreach opportunities where they say that the community is invited to weigh in and they want your thoughts. Again, these are plans that have already been rolled out. The policies are in place, and it's an illusion to keep you in the illusion that you have a say in government, and you do not. If there's one thing I can't underscore enough, it's the fact that any idea of weighing in any government legislative body, wherever that is simply an illusion. So, having said that, I'm going to get into something, and I covered this in a YouTube I did a few years ago, but not to the extent that I will right now. I did a YouTube, and it was entitled Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. Again, Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power. And I had discovered a document that I discuss in that YouTube. And basically I was discussing that document in terms around the fact that it was a known fact that fracking caused earthquakes, and that they were also disposing of heavy toxins by literally vaccinating the earth all over the country and injecting toxins and poisons into not only the groundwater supply, but as a cheap way to get rid of environmental toxins. So, again, I would encourage everybody to listen to Water Wars, Stealing Water for Profit and Power, because I discuss what you're going to hear now and not as in much detail as you're going to hear right now.
Right.
Now, this is out of a U.S. Geological Survey bulletin, and it's about earthquake hazards and how that's associated with deep well injection. Now, I've reported that we live here in Northern California, and we're near the world's largest geothermal geyser operation, where the USGS has monitors all over the hillsides here that monitor multiple daily earthquakes caused by injecting the wastewater treatment, poop and urine, and pharmaceuticals into these deep boreholes. Some of the boreholes are 13,000 feet in depth. The majority are around 8,000 feet. And this toxic human waste is being injected into these boreholes. Now, I do have a YouTube up on stopthecrime.net on our YouTube video channel. We do discuss that, and we take you on a tour of the world's largest geyser operation. And I would recommend that you take the time and take a look at what is happening to all of us and how it is. So let's talk about this document. This document says many things, but it says that certain circumstances increased bore pressure resulting from fluid injection, which is just what I was talking about with the injection of wastewater. They say whether it's waste disposal, secondary recovery, or geothermal energy, or solution mining, it can trigger earthquakes. Seismic hazards associated with deep well fluid injections. Now, this document goes back to the 50s. So it's very important to understand that what you're going to hear me say is going to be riveting, but why it is so important is because they're very much aware of what the fake reality of presenting water to us really has always been. Because many of us now know that the earth provides natural resources and makes renewable energies in the form of not only water, but of petroleum also, which is another interesting situation that we see as a sidebar right now occurring in Venezuela with the intention to shut off oil production, again, creating the illusion that we have a fossil fuel basis and we're running out. The idea is to shut off the oil so they will no longer be able to sell and profit from a natural renewable energy. And that's why part of the reason Venezuela is under attack right now. That's one of the layers of this attack, is to cut off the oil supply. Just as they killed Muammar Gaddafi and bombed Libya to pieces, because Muammar Gaddafi had delivered primary water to many of the cities within Libya, and it was known as the Great Man-Made River Project, or the eighth wonder of the world, and that was blown to smithereens. They don't want you to know that these are natural, reoccurring, renewable resources in abundance on this planet, on this earth, and they are. So this report, Dr. Bill, is just astounding, because what this report talks about is not only the known facts of the well injections causing earthquakes, and also fracking through the shale for gas, which is what the CEO of the current USA Inc. is planning to do right now. They know it will cause earthquakes. Now, there's another factor about causing earthquakes that I had heard about, and this document tells us happens. So this is a known fact, and this is going to be a little riveting for many, but I'm going to bring it back to this. First of all, because we have primary water, we do not need to have the water delivery system set up the way it has been. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, the Great California Aqueduct and how it's delivering atmospheric water, rain and snowmelt, through this massive open delivery system, where then it is certainly very toxic. It's very, very poisonous water at best, because rain and snowmelt is very toxic now, with all the chemtrails and bomb testing and flowing over the lands to be collected in these cauldrons of reservoirs that then have all the heavy metals and the other types of fertilizers, all that you can imagine. And now our water delivery system is going to be added to by urine and fecal material and pharmaceuticals that are going to be delivered into the upstream water supplies. And the World Bank calls this a blend, to blend this into our reservoirs for drinking water. This is the plan. This is what is happening. This is what billions and billions of dollars are going to be spent on, as well as desalinization, the illusion that we're running out of water. So, Dr. Bill, what we discovered in this report, in this bulletin, is that reservoirs cause earthquakes too. And the weight of the water of the reservoir puts a massive load up on that area that supports it and has caused shifts in the geological zones below. And they have been monitoring this and mapping this for many, many decades. This has been a known fact. And again, it's all based on a faulty water delivery system of secondary water, as opposed to delivering water from down below through just accessing wells and delivering it like Muammar Gaddafi did in Libya.
75% of the water was delivered as primary water, new lakes, new aqueducts, new irrigation. And again, this is based on the principle that everybody in the Middle East is known for tens of thousands of years. Without primary water, there would be no Middle East.
Well, that's absolutely right. And this document talks about the hydraulic factors in triggering, and they know, and they say in this document, it's well documented, that cases of injection-induced seismic activity and the increase of pore pressure results from the fluid injection and the increased amounts of fluid injection that causes triggering of earthquakes. And that's what we see here with the geysers and with the geothermal operations and the injection of the fluids into the ground. They're triggering earthquakes. Now, they say even if they slow down on the injections and triggering the earthquakes, it will keep the pressure on that injection site, and it will continue to have earthquakes. And I've got to wrap this up on the other side of this break.
Yeah, in other words, what you're talking about is the fact they know the circumstances, say in Oklahoma with fracking, how it's triggering off earthquake. They know in Northern California how it's doing the same thing, and they persist anyway, even though it's dangerous as hell. to the population.
Yeah, this is how many of the earthquakes are being triggered, actually.
Right. So, Deborah, one of the biggest problems is these are called Paul Bunyan truths, not lies. They're documented in physical documents. They're documented in videos. They're documented by people like yourself, myself. I've known about many of these things for years. And people say, well, why would they do that? Because they're trying to kill us.
Well, that's exactly right.
And you got to understand the one who's ultimately doing this, right out of Thessalonians, is Lucifer. Now, he is a prince of the power of the air, which means his primary realm that he exists in is the realm of the soul or consciousness. His realm is not here down in the negentropic realm, the entropic realm. The negentropic is a realm of consciousness, so it creates order out of chaos. Our world actually is a Maya or an illusion. It's in Indian mythology and Hindu mythology that this whole physical universe we live in is actually an illusion. It's almost like a four-dimensional video game. Is the best way to describe it.
Well, it most definitely is, and I can only tell you when I revisited this document, and prior to the break, I was getting ready to talk about the known seismic activity around reservoirs, which is, they call it in the document, the impoundment to gather and enclose water. And listen to this, because people need to have some facts behind what I'm saying. And so here's what they've known since the 50s and 60s. And they talk about the largest earthquakes that have been induced by the impoundment of reservoir occurred in Kona Reservoir in 1967 and had a magnitude of 6.5. It caused over 200 deaths, over 1,500 injuries, and considerable damage to the nearby town and to the dam. And they go on to say, thus, the hazard associated with what reservoir-induced seismicity is significant. They've known this. There are many other reports. I've got a report and a document of deaths occurred in 1945. They also talked about reservoir-induced earthquakes, and they were first described in association with the filling of Lake Mead in Nevada. Now, I can tell you, I know many people that have enjoyed Lake Mead, and at the surface, it's a beautiful lake, but it causes earthquakes, and they say that it was not until the late 60s that earthquakes larger than a 5.5 occurred at 4 major reservoirs, and one in China and in Rhodesia. And they talk about all the death, destruction, and damage from reservoir impoundment. Again, the false collection of water to poison us, the collection of atmospheric water, and the very important YouTube to listen to is Primary Water Explained. And you will hear how the atmospheric water has been given to us as our source of water, which is rain and snowmelt. And, of course, that is not true. Primary water is the originating source of rain and snowmelt, and we're being denied that. As a matter of fact, we're being poisoned by the lack of understanding the true water facts. And now I'm looking at a newspaper, and it's dated December 7th of 2018, and it talks about the current CEO, the Trump, plans to cut sage goose buffer. Now, here's something interesting. The environmentalists fight over logging in open lands, etc., the loss of endangered species, but they don't get the larger picture. This is an intentional fracking process and drilling now in millions and millions of acres that are in the western areas of the United States and stretch across the spine of this nation. And they plan to drill over 9 million acres and open it up for drilling and mining, intentionally causing earthquakes because we don't need to get petroleum by drilling like that and fracking and mining, because petroleum is a renewable resource, just like water. So we've got to watch now very carefully where drilling and fracking is occurring near you. It is an intentional creation of earthquakes, which is why now you're hearing more and more about earthquakes, because it is the intended plan of added warfare against all of us. So again, I can't underscore the reality of water, how it now fits into creating earthquakes, how reservoirs and fracking are all part of a diabolical plot, a known plot, to create earthquakes and massive damage and death. And why are they doing all of this? What is the goal? Well, of course, there are many, but we're going to get into a document right here, right now, that is just unbelievable. Now, I want everybody to understand something. I'm going to read you the name of this document, but I'm going to break it down. It says draft text for proposed addendum to White House rules for the 116th Congress of the United States. Now, it says draft text. So what I want to read to you is what the draft text means. It says right here, the draft legislation may be prepared concurrently with the development of the completed plan. So the word draft is going to throw most people off. They're going to read this diabolical plan that they believe the Congress is going to look at slowly. It's a draft, but in fact, it's actually the plan being written in final form. So what is this plan? First of all, again, what you heard me read with the title, Draft Text for Proposed Addendum, it's to create the illusion of a government process. And we don't have a government process, and these plans that I'm going to tell you about right now have already been implemented. What is this plan? Okay, it is called the Plan for a Green New Deal. A Green New Deal. And I will tell you,
the Democrats talk about this all the time. AOC, Occasional Cortex, Bernie Sanders Claus, Karen Warren, all these maniacs are preaching this, and these are the terms they use, right?
Well, it is, and actually everyone listening needs to understand it's not a Green New Deal. This is a done deal. And this plan is about energy transition. This is transforming the entire economy of the United States. This is a worldwide energy transition. This is the Green New Deal, and they're rushing to the transition to a fully greenhouse gas neutral economy worldwide. So now, and it's important to understand how they're telling us they're going to change the global economy and how it's going to be.
We had Dr. Tim Ball on last week, and Dr. Tim explained how the IPCC has sued him for 8 years. 3 different suits. The fact is, it's total horse hockey. It's garbage. It's not a new Green Deal. And when you interfere with the carbon oxygen cycle, oxygen levels on the planet drop. This is deadly to living forms like us that require oxygen. Please continue.
Now, Dr. Bill, you're making too much rational sense out of a plan that is set and scheduled to kill millions and to literally deform, forget transform, deform the economy of this country and the world economy.
Already the world's oxygen concentration at sea level on the coast of all the continents has dropped from 21 to 19% now as of the last 20 years. If it drops into the range of, say, 14%, another 5%, most people will not have functional frontal lobes, which means they'll be animals. They'll act like the amygdala and the basal parts of the brain are in control. And you'll see violent human behavior that indicates they're decorticate. They no longer have frontal lobes to prevent bad behavior. That's what's coming.
That is what's coming. And in the slide towards that, here's what you're being told in the illusion of a legislative draft, which is not a legislative draft. It is a plan already in place. And I'm going to read some of the quotes out of this plan. And it should scare the hell out of all of you, because it certainly does out of those that understand what's happening. And this is very much in alliance with all of the climate action plans that I have been talking about for many, many years. And here's what it says. The plan for the new Green Deal is going to reach and mandate these following outcomes. dramatically expand existing renewable power sources and deploy new production capacity with the goal of meeting 100% of national power demand through renewable sources. And I'm going to pause for a moment. This ties into Pacific Gas and Electric and the space-based solar electric grid and kill grid system with the military that's being deployed and has been deployed already. But then they go on to say, building a new national energy efficient smart grid. That is the wireless smart grid for everything, the Internet of Things. Everything will be the Internet of Things. They say this, Dr. Bill, upgrading every residential and industrial building for the state-of-the-art energy efficiency. Then they add comfort and safety. Upgrading every residential and industrial building. Upgrading. Eliminating.
Well, I'll tell you what they're doing. You ever seen the movie, the video game Sims? So you play the game Sims, and there's a sim of you in the cyberspace. What they're trying to do is create a digital sim of everybody in the first and second world so they control us. That's what this is about. They want a sim. That's why every appliance now for the last 10 years has got a special chip connected to smart grid so they can turn it on and off, and they can know if you're using it. If you're using your hairdryer or refrigerators, at a certain
Absolutely. And you know, Dr. Bill, we have talked about that on your program for years.
Right.
And I can tell you that everyone that has a smart meter, if you can opt out, get it off, do that. Everyone probably at this point, or the majority of people, already are getting ready to have the wireless water meters deployed. That's already rolling out worldwide as we speak. Also, there are many other things, but I'm going to continue.
When I tried to put solar panels on, one of the first things that they did when they wanted to put on more panels, we have to give you a smart grid
smart meter.
And smart meter. I said, you're not going to do that. I said, I'm going to come out armed and dangerous. What do you
mean?
I
want to add to this. I want to add to why everybody should be coming out armed and dangerous, in the sense that what you're going to hear this document tell you that we're all going to have to do to get ready for a transformation of this country, and accepting set and level paychecks for our work, and not having disparity. They're saying there should be, through this process of transformation, they're going to make it unlawful for there to be intimidation and harassment. And they want a creation of a meaningful, quality career for employment. And they want to say they're requiring, and they will ensure, a just transition into this change that is being implemented worldwide. And when I read this document, and I've listened to other people that have talked about this document, they're saying, write your legislators and tell them you don't want this. Everybody listening, this is a done deal. It is not a green...
What they're doing is they want to get rid of 90% of us, and the rest they want to turn us into humanipets, where the cyber state and AI control us to such an extent they might as well have a cyber arm come out and pet us on the head.
Well, Dr. Bill, I'm going to continue to go through this plan, and all of you can look at this for yourselves. We do have it posted on stopthecrime.net. I have not broken it down like you're going to hear me discussing it right now. Right. But when you look at it, it's most important to understand we don't have an elective process. We don't have a congressional process. The United States is a corporation, and this is continuing an illusion. So don't waste your time in going to your representatives thinking that you can weigh in and say you don't want this. And more importantly, it's most important to understand this is all based on the illusion of climate change, when it's weather weapons and climate control.
Right.
So when we come back, I'm going to continue with the breakdown of this document.
By the way, they're piggybacking it on what's called the pole shift, which is the real underlying event, and the globalists want to pretend that what they're doing is trying to protect us from climate change, but it's actually the prelude to a pole shift. That's what they're doing. They're piggybacking it to convince us that if they don't do this, we'll all die. And welcome back. And so, Deborah, you have lots more documents here. I'm going to make a little video after the show today with some very important information, so please continue.
Yes, okay, so again, I'm continuing with this document, the draft for the 116th Congress of the United States. Again, Congress is irrelevant, and we're told that in this document that this is a mandated requirement to shift the economy. This document, again, it's about transforming the entire global economy. I've talked about many times in the past that we're entering a time of massive global disruption. I've talked about kiss your gas goodbye. I have a tab on Stop the Crime that talks about eliminating gas. It's in your climate action plans. It's been there for years. We've been talking about that. Now it is happening on steroids because they're saying this must now be done quickly. And it is a worldwide energy transition. This is the Green New Deal. That is a done deal. So they talk about many horrifying things in here, actually. They talk about everything must now be distributed equitably, and our paychecks must now all be pretty much even. This is literally talking about the new level pay. But they go on to talk about the plan for the new Green Deal shall recognize that innovative public and or other financing structures are a critical component in achieving and furthering these goals. The plan, accordingly, shall ensure that the majority of the financing shall be accomplished by the federal government. Now, that's your taxes, everybody. Accomplished by the federal government using a combination of the Federal Reserve. Okay, that's Rothschild and Rockefeller. Those are the globalists because we don't have a Federal Reserve. It's not federal and there are no reserves. So by using a combination of the Federal Reserve, they say a new public bank or system of regional and specialized public banks, public venture funds, and such other vehicles or structures that the Select Committee deems appropriate in order to ensure that the interest and other investment returns generated from public investments, we're talking private-public partnerships, the globalists, made in connection with this plan will have a return, and they say that it will be returned to the Treasury. Well, that's the international bankers. So
right.
let's
that's
get
why
down.
They're commoditizing everything on the planet, including corn in Kansas to steel in Pennsylvania to whatever.
And the sun also.
Yeah. So
and
that's
the
what
air.
they're really trying to do. They're trying to commoditize everything.
Yeah.
And,
now here are within this plan, Dr. Bill, they have a section of frequently asked questions, and they say, why do we need a sweeping Green New Deal investment program? Why can't we just rely on regulations and taxes alone, such as carbon tax or an eventual ban on fossil fuels? Now, there is going to be a ban on fossil fuels, a.k.a. renewable petroleum. There will be a ban. It's in the process right now. That's why they're shutting Venezuela off. But they go on to say the answer to this question is because regulations and taxes change some behavior. It's certainly possible to argue that if we had to put in place targeted regulations and progressively increasing carbon and similar taxes several decades ago, the economy could have transformed by itself by now. But whether or not that is true, we did not do that then, and now time has run out. They also say that given the magnitude of the current challenge, the tools of regulation and taxation used in isolation will not be enough to quickly and smoothly accomplish the transformation that we need to see in the economy worldwide. Simply put, we don't need to just stop doing some things we're doing, like using fossil fuels for energy needs. Again, fossil fuels, that's false, because our petroleum was never from fossils. Right. But we also need to start doing new things, like overhauling whole energies and industries and retrofitting all buildings to be energy efficient. Starting to do new things requires some upfront investment. In the same way that a company is trying to change how it does business, it must
like these crazy windows you talk about that can start fires.
Oh, yeah, the high-efficiency, low-E green energy windows that start fires.
Right.
So they're going on, and they're talking about how the resolution sets out a list of many major projects that need to be completed fast. And they say this includes upgrading virtually every home and building for energy efficiency, building a 100% greenhouse gas neutral power generation system. This is, again, the PG&E and the Solaren, S-O-L-A-R-E-N. That's in the process right now. That's why PG&E is in bankruptcy. They are setting up a new delivery system. Make no mistake. They also talk about decarbonizing industry and decarbonizing agriculture, just for a few. They say these projects will all require huge investments. And we're not saying there's no place for regulation and taxes. They say that that will continue to be important, but they're saying they need a lot more money. And they go on to also say this, and this is under the frequently asked questions, and they say, why should the government have a big role in driving and making all required investments? And they say two main reasons, scale and time. First, the scale. They say the level investment required will be massive. Even if all the billionaires and companies came together and were willing to pour all the resources at their disposal into this massive global energy change, the aggregate value of the investments they could make would not be sufficient. They say, for example, the $1 trillion over 10 years plan that investment in the green economy that has been floated by some policymakers has been criticized by climate experts as a wholly inadequate level of investment. They go on to say $1 trillion is the entire market cap of Amazon, one of the biggest companies of all time, and it's far ahead of its closest competitors in terms of market size. And then they say the second reason the government needs to control all of this is time. The speed of the investment required will be massive. Let me read that again. The speed of the investment required will be massive. Even if all the billionaires and companies could make the investments required, they would not be able to pull together a coordinated response in the narrow window of time required to jumpstart major new projects and major new energy sectors. They go on to say that time horizons matter in another way. By their nature, private companies, now this is interesting, listen carefully to this. Time horizons matter in another way. By their nature, private companies are wary of making massive investments in unproven research. That's what all of this is. It's proven to be all false, but let's continue. Investments in unproven research and technologies. The government, however, has the time horizon to be able to patiently make investments in new tech and research and development without necessarily having a commercial outcome or application in mind at the time of the investment. So in other words, what they're saying is private investors are wary of investing into technologies that are new, and the government is not. And the government is going to take from all of us. You're going to find massive revenue increasing now in all of your cities.
How can they afford this? I mean, the Yellow Jacket revolution in France and now also in Canada is going to come here.
That's all psyops, by the way.
And by the way...
Well, Dr. Bill, I'm going to actually read you in this document how they're going to pay for it, and you're going to be astounded, because I'm going to read that right now, because we're up at the top of the hour here. Many will say massive government investment. How in the world can we pay for all of this? The answer is in the same way that we paid for the 2008 bank bailout, extended quantitative easing programs, the same way we paid for World War II, and many other wars. The Federal Reserve can extend credit to power those projects and investments. New public banks can be created, as in World War II, to extend credit, and a combination of various taxation tools, including taxes on carbon and other emissions, and progressive wealth taxes will be employed. So, Dr. Bill, I can tell you this is a takedown. This is equalizing every one of us to a state of mere existence and only being able to access vital resources to sustain our lives. That's it. To only be able to access vital resources for allowing survival. And of course, we know that vital resources are being eliminated intentionally. They're renewables. They're created continuously. Renewables, natural resources of this earth, like the sun. The sun is being dimmed now with the geoengineering. We're losing the oxygen. This is all a plan. So all of you that are listening, when you hear this and you wonder what to do, go to your water meetings in your cities, turn around with the mic, and talk to the audience about what's really going on. Do not talk to your perceived and the illusion of city leaders.
Exactly.
And I will actually put this up on our YouTube channel because you'll see how we did that at a meeting last week.
You described it in many different forms: the water, the attack of power, drop in oxygen, the change in the albedo of the Earth to reflect sunlight out. The ecosystem is what we call the Earth. The ecosystem of Earth, a living thing called Earth. I call it ecocide. Killing the Earth, killing us while it does it.
That's absolutely right. And so when people hear these documents and it sounds like it's not reversible, the only way to reverse reality is to understand what reality is. So the sooner all of you can know what you need to know, reality could possibly shift to a certain extent for a few. But there will be many people, millions of which will not process through this forced psyops that we're all being pushed through now. There will be only a few, sadly. And you can be part of the few, I believe, for a limited period of time, because I think what we face is so global and so monolithic. And we've been told by so many people before us, JFK said, it's a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy. And we were also told by the former CIA director that the plans are to literally destroy everything that is good and decent. And these plans tell us that. And we were told before. And so I guess what I would say, Dr. Bill, is people need to understand, not be fearful. Go to the meetings, understand when they go to meetings, they're talking to the audience, the other people that may not know the facts of what's going on. Do not seek any change through your city appointed officials that are running United Nations policies through this. We are a network. We are a franchised corporate network, and all these policies are going through all our cities at a very similar time. That's why at the beginning of this program I talked about water and how water policies to minimize water are happening now in all of our cities. And again, this is not only an assault within the United States entirely, as well as other countries and throughout the world. So wherever you are that you're listening to this, this is happening to you. This is not a Northern California event. But go to stopthecrime.net and learn the truth and the facts, and go to our YouTube channel.
Thank you, Deborah. Amazing discussion today. Wow. What you have to do is go to visit stopthecrime.net, get your crying towel out, read and weep, but act. Don't just sit there in the center of the freeway of truth and get run over.